everyone, welcome back to Installation 00, and once again we enter the Bestiarum, our deep dive into the respective species of the Halo universe, and continue our look at the Foreigners, treating each of the respective rates as their own subspecies due to the immense genetic, physiological and morphological differences between the rates. And we finalise with the Foreigners today, with the rate responsible for the majority of the immense megastructures that now litter the galaxy 100,000 years after their disappearance. Today, we focus in on the Builders. Shaping the galaxy to conform to their every whim, the Foreigners' leading rate was the Builders, those who constructed the great edifices that would tarry in the galaxy far longer than their own civilization. Master designers, engineers and artists, the Builders stood first in prestige and power among the rates. They were responsible for the design and construction of nearly all Forerunner ships, buildings, ancilla, and megastructures. Their kind tinkered with the fundamental building blocks of reality, constructed machines the size of moons, and wove together artificial minds that could surpass even their creators. Builder families and cohorts jealously guarded their talent and accolades, but it was their respective guilds that truly mattered. Each was focused within a narrow range of interests, but the depths of their accumulated knowledge and resources could never be underestimated. Guilds moved entire planets in competitions for reputation and the attention of innovative designers. Though most builders preferred to mould exotic matter and experiment with artificial consciousness, others strove to build dynasties and massive power blocks, and a few had the breadth of wisdom and the strength of will to do both. Chief among their rate was the position of Master Builder, and no individual more aptly encompassed the extent of their ambition than Faber of Will and Might, the Master Builder responsible for the design and legacy of Halo. Tall and lithe, the eldest and most high-ranking builders reached up to 4 meters in height. Their prominent physical characteristics were finely carved, with polished grey skin as well as dark eyes that were sometimes brightly flecked. Eager to clearly convey their affluence, builders extensively customized their bodies to be more efficient and had mutation options tailored for task specializations. Builders existed at the very apex of Forerunner culture and society. Their carriage and frame fit this position of nobility. Builder Security was responsible for the safety and defense of their rate's facilities. Over time, its purview and influence expanded until the machinations of the Master Builder resulted in this force eclipsing the warrior servants in both stature and authority during the centuries before the appearance of the Flood. At the height of Builder Security's power, many warrior servants transitioned to their ranks, and a new series of mutations was commissioned by the Master Builder to bridge the Builder and warrior rates. This experiment is assumed to never have been seen through to its conclusion due to the Flood War and resulting political crisis. In the end, the isodidact, who had been born a builder, yet became a warrior servant through the imprint of the original didact, united both rates to make their final stand against the Flood. Joined by the Master Builder, these efforts were valiant, noble, but ultimately futile. All Forerunner tools and structures were built atom by atom in assembler vats. These nanofabrication forges followed instructions spun into design seeds by pattern weavers both living and artificial. If their creators desired it, every item could be reproduced perfectly down to the smallest detail and fractal core. Such perfection of form and symmetry of scale appealed to the Foreigners responsible for designing edifices that wrapped the Ecumen in layers of miraculous machinery and ultimately reshaped the galaxy to their desires. Assembler vats fit a number of basic schemas contingent on the scale, the complexity and the artistic integrity of each object that was crafted. Some were the size of mere buildings, others the size of moons. InGens were large, highly sophisticated facilities capable of making extraordinarily complex and integrated assemblies. Each was a remarkable factory cathedral of the highest order, able to bend the very substance of reality in the pursuit of artifice. Sumus were astonishingly powerful facilities charged with creating the finest ships, constructs, and mega-engineering tools. Most military shipyards and factory clusters were of this class. Minoris were lesser assembler vaults and workshops tasked with the mass fabrication of lower-tier constructs as efficiently and quickly as possible. These facilities were often incorporated into large fortress ships and exploration cruisers for on-site replenishment of weapon ships, low-tier warships, and anything complicated but ultimately expendable. Ferraris were smaller assembler vats for personal arms, standardized carapaces, and lesser constructs such as sentinels. For security and efficiency, these facilities were typically very specialized but relatively simple, and their loss was inconsequential. Mercatus, sprawling industrial vaults and resource processors dedicated to the creation of civilian mechanisms and structures, were present in all major population centers. Their output was limited only by security restrictors and local demand. And finally, artifacts, which were specialized or individual factories for unique designs. These were the province of council worthies and the most accomplished of each rate. Each was an extraordinary complex, guided by the greatest minds of the Ecumene, and a title and place of honor in the grand works of Forna civilization. As the preeminent political faction in the latter ages, the builders had access to resources, knowledge, and spheres of influence that were the envy of other rates. Their ships were as much instruments of intra-rate competition and intrigue as they were practical vessels. Many took a specialization or theme to an extreme, excelling at one or two tasks at the expense of any multi-mission capability. Builders did not cooperate with other rates on ship designs, but the products of those collaborations were highly regarded. One of the most remarkable features of Forna civilization was their profound understanding of physical engineering, erecting structures of immense scale and breathtaking design, ignoring pragmatism for the sake of invoking awe. It is of little wonder that some creatures worship them as gods. Forna architecture is extraordinarily advanced and dizzying in its complexity. No species in their wake has managed to construct edifices with such majesty and splendor, making the exploration of what has been left behind a staggering experience for those who encounter them. The structures that remain behind are often not typical buildings as such, but simply machines with conventional access corridors and passages, rather than livable dwellings or even spaces intended to be traversed by Fornas at all. Yet even these functional locations show hints of the Fornas' aesthetic tastes, with elaborately engraved geometric patterns, steep angles, and incredible scale. Although most were crushed and torn down by the flood parasite as it consumed the heart worlds of the Ecumene, the buildings in which the Fornas lived, learned, and loved were living things that adapted to their inhabitants using nanomachines, hard-light shells, holographic projections, and field-reinforced assemblies rather than permanent objects recognizable as furniture or other adornments. Without living Fornas to command them, these rooms, corridors, and cities now appear empty and lifeless. But the grandeur and intricacy of Forna craftsmanship are undeniable, even in their inert state. In their prime, the humblest Forna home located on their core worlds could be deceptively immense, with rooms separated by thousands, even millions of kilometers using slip-space portals, compressed spatial volumes, or composed of superimposed structures that rotated in and out of phase with each other. Large personal buildings could also extend above and below the surface, with travel made simple through specialized gravitic elevators or the inbuilt flight capabilities of the Forna's second skin. The Fornas developed hard-light technology during the early rise of their interstellar civilization, refining it over millions of years to serve a multitude of functions in warfare, construction, and art. Hard-light, when harnessed properly, can be cast into physical structures of various densities or folded in on itself to create reinforced barriers. Though highly versatile, hard-light constructs require extraordinarily complicated emitters and field stabilizers, and must be fed with incredible amounts of power. The Covenant also made use of hard light, but understood only rudimentary principles, and crudely repurposed Forerunner mechanisms in most of their applications. Perhaps the most ubiquitous uses of hard light technology on the Forerunner's extant installations is found in light bridges, which are both aesthetically pleasing and remarkably practical. Grapplers push, pull, and manipulate objects at a distance using tendrils of invisible graphitic force. Small grapplers can have strength and dexterity of a child, while those fitted on Strato-Sentinel extractors and assemblers can grip asteroids and starships. Grapplers can also lock objects together or hold them in specific arrangements to maximize structural integrity or optimize Forerunner aesthetic tastes. At the height of their power and technological ascension, the Forerunners made extensive use of programmable machine cells at various scales that could be arranged to form the structure of tools, ships, and megastructures. The smallest of these machine cells were true nanomachines, able to manipulate objects at a molecular scale, while the largest were multifunction blocks the size of continents that could manipulate space-time itself when placed in arcane configurations. Their cohesion was often augmented by hard light and energy bonds to form seemingly impervious, monolithic structures. Although many of their constructs, especially artificial worlds, seamlessly blend natural environments with structures and machines, as a general rule, Forerunners preferred not to mix life and non-life together in their creations. Their programmable nanomachines, however, did allow for constructs to be grown in a manner analogous to biological organisms. Atomic-level precision gave way to mass production of exotic materials that cannot exist in nature, including hyperdense masses. Design instructions could be packaged together with self-replicating nanofabrication systems, though the potential for misuse and accident was high enough that use of these assembler seeds was limited by the Council. A typical assembler seed contained a small nanofabricator and computing core, surrounded by a shell of starter feedstock and a final restrictor layer to protect the entire device. These assembler seeds were then planted and allowed to expand and develop by consuming nearby minerals to feed its growth, often without supervision, as finalization could take years. During the final years of the Forerunners, Faber of Will and Might held immense power as the Master Builder, leading a myriad of efforts throughout the Ecumene against the seemingly unstoppable Flood. Cunning, ruthless, and often capable of great cruelty, the Master Builder was an ally to the Didact in the early years of the Forerunners' war against the humans, but with the onset of the parasite's incursion into the Ecumene, their relationship strained to the point of breaking. Faber's proposal of Halo, an obliterative weapon capable of searing away not only the Flood but all sentient life that it fed on, was opposed by the Didact as an affront to the mantle. In the end, the Council approved Faber's plans for this weapon, recognizing the extraordinary peril the Flood represented. With his ambitions now galvanized, the Master Builder swiftly initiated Halo's construction, eventually giving the Ancilla Mendicant Bias orders to test the weapon on Charam Hakor. This pivotal act led to the unwitting release of the Primordial, an ancient creature that held deeply haunting ties to the Flood. This fateful event resulted in the subversion of Mendicant Bias and the capture of Gaia 11, one of the Master Builder's own Halo weapons. Eventually arrested and tried for his crimes against the Sanshayum, Faber quickly found the number of his enemies growing and favor swiftly returning to the Didact. He fled to the far reaches of the Ecumene in order to fight the Flood, even though he was later sought out and interrogated by the Juridicals for his crimes against the Mantle. Ironically, his final act would be one of sacrifice and heroism, defending the senescent Ark with Omega Halo, the tragic site where the Forerunners would suffer their greatest defeat. Here, Faber perished, though valiantly, in the defense of his people. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, kindly tap that like button, and if you're not already subscribed and want to see more stuff like this, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future uploads. Pop a comment down below telling me what you thought of today's video, or if you want me to cover something specific in the near future. I want to take this opportunity to thank and give shoutouts to my patrons and YouTube supporters, Spartan10148, my singular Contender class Ancilla, the triumvirate of minds within my installations Metarch, Falcon, Jordan, and Poseidon, my 7 installation monitors Selphia, Ashley, Esoteric, Spartan 1029, Chris, Orion, and Shane, the crush of sub-monitors Legion, Ryan, Lebrat, Spartan 0137, Element 0, J3, Cult, Evermore's, Personal Devil, Scion Esports, Phantasma, Ashton, and 191 Shaken Lightbulb, my fleet of Strato Sentinels, my most loyal of Enforcers, and every single one of the awesome people supporting the channel over on Patreon. My Tier 0 Transcendent YouTube members Spartan 137, again, Maury, Jimbo, and Balaz, and all other YouTube members keeping my installation functional on that glorious vacuum energy. I cannot thank you all enough. Shout out to John because... And if you like what I'm doing here, consider supporting the channel on one of the support links in the description to net yourself some tasty merch and help keep the channel going. Take it easy everyone, and find peace in the domain.